Hello. It's a fifth line day. Now, fifth lines come with keynotes of heresy, seduction, and practical solutions in times of crisis. So what are you going to do today? Are you going to be especially useful? Are you going to do something practical? Maybe something you've been thinking about and not getting around to? There is the potential today for bringing something practical into our experience. But remember that it's a conditioning field. Unless you're a fifth line profile, or there is a particular fifth line in this, what we're talking about, the 25th gate today, then it's part of a conditioning field for you. And it's not consistent in your experience. So whatever you feel today about giving practical solutions, if people come to you and project onto you that you can save them somehow, then that's really nice. And if it's correct for you to help them, then yeah, great. But don't rely on it because it's not consistent for you. And this is one of the big lessons that we have really in human design. It's that it's finding that place where we can recognize what is us and what isn't. The heretical element may come out today by actions that seem out of your norm, or maybe you'll say something and it will be a bit, whoa, that was a bit shocking, that was a bit heretical, didn't land terribly well. So strategy and authority, as always, is what will see through all that kind of thing. And even if you don't get necessarily a really positive response to what it is you're saying, if it's correct for you to say it, then that doesn't really matter. And having extra awareness around projections today is good because, as we know, the fifth line can be projected on that they're going to save the day. They are the general coming out in that time of crisis to lead the troops to a successful conclusion. But again, strategy and authority help you to navigate these waters. Ra said of the fifth line that whatever you're going to do in this life, make sure it has a practical application. And if that's the case, you will be a success, whatever it is. But if it's not, then you have the reputation problem, and that will follow you wherever you go. And the fifth line, they really have a lot of awareness about their reputation. It's important to them that their reputation stays intact. So the 25-5 is called recuperation. In times of crisis, when that general is called upon to provide practical solutions for the community, they are given complete power. They are called in, help us, save us, tell us what to do. That's their job. They go in, they do it, and then they withdraw from the situation. They have to give the power back. And if they don't give the power back, then that's when they can turn into something other than the savior general, into more of a dictator type thing. And then the heretical quality can come in that hasn't been asked for. And then there's the building of the pyre ready for you to be tied on and set fire to. Because people don't want to be saved all the time, or not every day, all the time. We want a savior in times of need. We want a savior when we call the savior, come and save me now. We don't want it all the time. And you might find if you have a 5-1 in your life who doesn't know about their design and doesn't understand the mechanic of the 5-1, that they're constantly giving you practical solutions and they're constantly trying to do that for you. And at times it can be so valuable. And at other times when you're not asking for it, then it's not always quite so welcome, So the lifetime learning in this line is when innocence is sapped of its vitality, healing is the first priority. So this gate, it makes up part of an incarnation cross called the Cross of Healing. So these are people who come into the world to either heal themselves of something, or to be healed, or to heal others. And of all of the 384 lines in the Rave I Ching, this is the only one that speaks of healing. Recuperation, of course, is a vital part of healing. And Ra said that the fifth line here really, it revolves around healing, in the sense that people will project on them that maybe they're really sick, and they'll say, oh, you're not looking well, or, that kind of thing. Or they might project on them that they're really healthy and, yeah, you look so amazing, you look so healthy. What is it you're doing? Healthy or sick? It's the mechanic of this line, and it's not personal. Ra, a quote for you. He says, only when you are in the now, only when you are being in the experience of your body, only when you are accepting your rhythm, are you healthy. The mystery of this line is that healing oneself is about withdrawal from conditioning. That is what healing is all about, to withdraw from conditioning and to heal the conditions. Ra tells us that this line talks about humanity and humanity's capacity to be healed. The line says it's the ability to recognize the inner meaning of an affliction and to withdraw until it is healed. Withdraw from the aura of others and their conditioning field and give yourself a chance to heal. And you see this behavior often in nature. When animals are sick, they will often hide themselves away. They will withdraw. Humans, on the other hand, we tend to just reach for a pill, or we give our authority to somebody else and say, make us well. But this gate is in centering, and centering is part of individuality. And so the advice really here is telling you to withdraw into your own space, into your own individuality, and wait for whatever ails you to pass. I've said a couple of times during this particular transit that living correctly, living according to your strategy and authority, doesn't mean that life is all sunshine and flowers every day, but it means that if you get sick, you get the illness that is correct for you to have. If you live as yourself, Ra says, that you don't get everyone else's disease. You get the disease that is correct for you to experience. There's a weakness in this fifth line. Ra tells us that the 46.5 is the weakest of all the fifth lines. And this is not far behind, the 46.5 being the polarity. No, yes, the polarity. It's not the harmonic, it's the polarity on the other side of the wheel. The weakness is there for a reason, because when we are sick, when we are really sick, that is a point really when we are in the now, because it's all we can think of. If you imagine when you've got a toothache, that toothache keeps you very present. It might not feel pleasant to be in that space, but it keeps you very pleasant. It's like you imagine, when you stub your toe, in that moment, you are totally there. So this is where the weakness of this fifth line comes in, because it brings that opportunity for that immediate, because in that moment, it's like whoa, okay, I'm right here, I'm in it. And then there's the recuperation that comes through from that. Ra comments that most humans don't truly know who they are until they are sick. And the sickness that they have is because they are not living out their true nature. So it also, everything ties up and it can get quite complicated in a way. You have that massive opportunity when you are ill to really sink into that space and find something within you. Find the thing within you that never changes, regardless of whether you're 5 or 50, the same thing looking out of your eyes in all of those years. When we withdraw, in that sense, we're trying to come home to ourselves. We're trying to come back to that place, but we don't always know what we're doing. And for the most part, most people, they get sick and then they get well again, and then they just go out and carry on exactly like they did before, doing everything that made them so sick to begin with. In the detriment of gate 25, line 5, we have a hypochondria and the need to be healed by others. So these are people who will consult Google for every little thing, every ache and pain, and and they've got books of encyclopedias of medical conditions and what the symptoms are and all of that stuff, And this is where we find this projection from other people saying, "Well, you're not looking so well. Are you okay?" And if this is something that you hear every day, then your body listens to you. Our bodies are so intelligent; they listen to that. And then the result can be a real expression of sickness. In the traditional I Ching, all fifth lines are actually considered to be exalted because they have such a potential impact on society. And this is the whole point of the projection field that they are a part of. They're called out in times of crisis. They have an impact. Boom. But the moment that your innocence is sapped of vitality and someone projects onto you, well, that's a moment that you can be very vulnerable to their conditioning, and then you can become sick. And you can become sick with their illness, not your own, not the one that is correct for you to have. So the 42, line 5, this is the one that Ra said was the weakest of all the fifth lines, and it's called pacing. And there is a similarity here between the channel 515, which is all about rhythm and timing, and this 4629, because they are both in control of rhythm to a certain degree. Both are collective, they are mirrors for each other. They both come down from the G center to the sacral center, just on opposite sides. They're both in collective. One's logic, one's abstract. And in terms of the rhythm and the pattern, they are similar, and that necessity to be correct in order to avoid failure. The rhythm in the 515 is more obvious to see in a way because it's about timing, and so you can very often see you've got someone who's very strict about timing, or someone who isn't at all, doesn't care about timing, or they're extreme in their timing. You can see it much clearly there. In the 4629, it's more about being in the right place at the right time. That's where the rhythm and the timing comes in, being in the flow of life in that way. Both the exaltation and the detriment in this line talk about rhythm, and rhythm was also mentioned in the polarity of the 25-5. So you see the genetic continuity of what happens with one fifth line happens in other fifth lines around the body graph. So this is, again, it's that in times of crisis, being called out, having that practical solution to offer, and then withdrawing. And it's a rhythm to that. There's a flow to that. And it also has a certain pace. So pacing is the name of this line. Gate 46 is, of course, with gate 25 in the incarnation cross of healing. And this sort of indicates that the correct pace will support the correct timing for healing. The right timing is crucial in all things. We see it in all the circuitry, especially in individuality. Expressing that freakish nature in the right timing is crucial. And here, healing in the right time. Things must be allowed to run their course. And the 46 is in a cyclical channel, a cyclical circuit, a cyclical circuit. And so there must be a beginning, a middle, and an end to an illness being a kind of crisis, and it all flows up into that crisis that we had just a couple of weeks ago, 36. So it's a really beautiful kind of weaving of the story. You can see it coming together, the correct timing. It'll be in the right cycle. You'll have the right experience. It might take you through a crisis, but that crisis then will have success. It will have progress at the end of it. Well, of course, the other side of this is that you don't follow the correct timing. You don't allow the correct rhythm to play itself out, the flow of life, and then in not following the correct timing, maybe you're holding on to the limelight, or you're forcing an ending to something. And after you've been called in to help and your practical solution has been taken, you are then burned at the stake for being heretical. So there's always that, or not, there's always that darker side. Darker is a pejorative word, isn't it? But it's that other side to the coin. So on the one side, you've got correct healing in the correct time, and on the other hand, you've got forcing it. So healing may actually happen, but it may not be correct for you to be healed at that point. We don't often deal with that sort of quality of not being well very elegantly, almost. It's that thing, we don't feel well, so we take a pill, or we go and see the doctor, or whatever it is. We give our authority away. What we generally don't do, which we were told in the 25, is to withdraw, to recuperate, to give ourselves time. And it is such a busy world. The conditioning that we have to live in is extraordinary. You know, our ancestors, even our parents, for the most part, never had to deal with the kind of conditioning that we are subjected to, almost 24 hours a day. You know, many people, excuse me, wear those fit watch things, which you can tell I don't wear. And that's a conditioning field, because that's hooked up to something and it buzzes when you're asleep if you get a text, or, you know, I mean, it's that sort of constant hooking into the Internet of Things. And that's a conditioning field. And then we've just got the natural conditioning field of the neutrino stream all the time that we can't get out of. So having time to withdraw and just be in that one conditioning field away from everybody else is a gift that we can give ourselves. Maybe it's something we can bring awareness to at this particular point in this particular transit. And this is something that I would like to offer you. So the moon today at 7:57 in the morning, GMT, of course, it goes into gate 59. This is the gate of sexuality. We talked about it a bit when we were looking at the 6th gate, which is in polarity to the 36. Build these things up. So it's a sacral gate, and it's pointing to the 6th gate, which is in the solar plexus. And this is the ability to break down barriers to achieve union. It's a role gate, you know, and it defines the sexual roles that humans play out. Everything from the caveman to the shy person, the open person, the ones who want to be friends first, the ones who want to seduce you, and the ones who are looking for a soulmate. These are all the roles that we play. And there are many differentiations around that. Maybe differentiation is not the right word. Anyway, there are lots of not deviations. I don't mean that either. Anyway, moving on. So would you like to bring some awareness into your interactions with others today? Now, this is called the gate of sexuality, but really it's any interaction where you are in aura with another, because this is part of the gate of penetration. You know, it's that sort of anytime you're in aura with someone else, there's that penetration of the auras. So bring some awareness to that. Who are you standing next to? Who are you sitting opposite? Is it right for you to be there? You know, we very rarely ask ourselves these sorts of questions. And you might find that you are expressing one or other of these roles, and particularly the one that relates to your profile line. But also look at that 5th line, you know, the seducer, because it's a 5th line day. Is this one particularly going to play out? And then at 21 minutes past 7 this evening, gate 40. This is the gate of aloneness. This is something that maybe after all that interaction, all that seduction in gate 59, we need a bit of time out to recuperate. And maybe this is a time to be alone. You know, this is a hard-working gate. It's a gate in the ego. It's pointing at the 37 in the solar plexus. And it works hard for the tribe. And in return, it just wants to be left alone. You know, it's part of the channel of the bargain. And this is the bargain. I will work really hard for you. I will put food on the table. Just leave me alone. Can you feel this in your experience today? You know, is this something that you can play with, that you can start to feel the elements of? Mercury is entering gate 42 at 18 minutes past 2 this afternoon. And this is the gate of growth. And it's also the gate of bringing things to a close. You know, it's collective. This is after you've been from the 46, which is our earth gate, remember, down into the 29. And then we squidge across quickly across the sacral, and we go down into the 42. And the 42 hooks up with the 53 and gives us the channel of cycles, the beginnings, middles, and ends. So what this tells us really is that we have a place in the cycle. You know, we're not outside the cycle of life. wherever we are, whatever stage of life we're at, even, we're part of the cycle of life. So there's a fuel here to start something in gate 53. That fuel comes up from the root. And then there's the fuel to complete it coming from the sacral into the 42. Sometimes an ending can be forced when there's too much growth or when it's uncomfortable. And then we have too much expansion through too much growth, and nothing is sustainable anymore, and it finishes. So growth also leads to ending. And Mercury, of course, is about communication. And in the wider transit, it could be seen not so much even personal communication, but it could be, what is the collective talking about? What are you noticing on the news tomorrow night, or tonight, rather? What are you noticing? People talking about, if you go to a club or a pub or a restaurant, just tune in. Are people talking about finishing things? Or are they talking about starting something new? It could always play out in these ways. Maybe you are aware for yourself of something coming to a close. And can you bring some real recognition to the importance of a cycle closing correctly before a new cycle begins? So that's the weather that we have for today. And before I go, I'm supposed to say, please, could you subscribe? Apparently there's a subscribe button somewhere. It's the emergency exit, isn't it? Please subscribe to my channel. And if you want to visit my website, bambaji.com, and it would always be lovely to welcome you there. And you can leave messages there for me and see what else I've got to offer. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this transit, and I will see you again for line 6 very shortly. Bye-bye.